Hi there, my name is Miss Kelly. I am a virtual content specialist for social studies grades 3 through 5. And in today's video, we're going to be working together to do a little main idea review. So let's get started. We are going to be using a chart that looks like this. We will be noting some main points as we read. And then we're going to take those main points and to sum it up in one sentence that says what the text is about. And we're going to be doing this by reading an article about the New Nation, which is the unit that you're currently in fourth grade. And as we read this article, here are some words that you might see that could be new to you. First, we have the word govern. To govern means to rule or to, to rule over something. Our government governs us. Then we have the word delegate. And in this article, a delegate is used as someone who acts on behalf of others or who has permission to speak on behalf of others. So, in our government, we have lots of delegates. We vote them in, and then they go and they speak on behalf of us and our beliefs. And then finally, we have the word valid. Valid means true. And the focus question for our reading today is, how can we find the main point or the main idea? Let's start reading. The first presidential administration in the United States. Here I see a painting. It says, George Washington Center arrives at Congress Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, March 4th, 1793, for the inauguration as the first president of the United States. In this painting by Jean Leon Jerome Ferris. In 1783, the Revolutionary War was over. General George Washington left his job in the military. He was ready to retire to his farm in Virginia. But Washington would soon be called on to lead the country again. This time, it would not be in war, but in peace. He would become the nation's first president. Washington's role in writing the Constitution. The 1780s were an important period for the United States. Privately, Washington was worried. The Articles of Confederation were the new governing documents of the country. They called for a weak central government. Washington believed this would not be good for the long-term health of the nation. He supported the call to hold a constitutional convention. He attended as a delegate. There, he was elected to oversee the writing of the U.S. Constitution. However, he did not join in the debate much. He did not publicly say that he supported the Constitution. Washington knew he would likely become the first president. As a person, Washington also had a reserved, quiet manner. He did not want to seem self-serving by giving the Constitution a thumbs up in public. Okay, let's pause here and think about some of the main points that we are seeing already in this text. I think one big point is the fact that George Washington is going to become the nation's first president. Another big point seems to be that Washington helped write the Constitution, but he had a little bit of an idea that he would probably be voted president. So he kept quiet because he didn't want to seem self serving, meaning he didn't want to seem like he was only supporting something that would help himself. So he kind of was quiet, laid back, stayed under the radar, and let everyone else debate about it because he didn't want to have a large say if he knew he was going to be our leader. All right, let's keep reading. Forming the first working U.S. government. The first presidential government under the Constitution was very important. The U.S. Constitution provided a bare outline for how the federal government would be formed. However, how it would actually come together was not clear. The standards set by the first president would be huge. So, what this is saying is that the first president will set the example for all the presidents after. Washington was generally very careful. Some things he did not change from the way they were under the Articles of Confederation. For example, Washington decided to keep the three departments of government that had existed before the Constitution was written. However, Washington was a nationalist. He favored a stronger central government. Washington made sure that executive power was independent of the control of the legislature. For example, Washington picked his own leaders for his government. The legislator could only accept or reject each choice. Washington identified the three leaders as his personal cabinet of advisors. These moves demonstrated the president's powers for years to come. Thomas Jefferson was his Secretary of State. Alexander Hamilton was chosen to lead the Treasury, and Henry Knox was the Secretary of War. Okay, let's pause here and think about some other big points. So, it seems like when Washington was the president, he was very careful, which connects back to how he was even before he was elected. He wanted to be very careful and do things the right way. It seems like maybe he knew that he was setting an important example. He also did certain things in his presidency that set the tone for the rest of the presidents to come. A lot of the things that he chose, like keeping the three departments of government, still exists today. Him also choosing his own cabinet is another thing that exists in maybe a slightly different form, but very similar form today. So again, I'm seeing this reoccurring theme of the things that happened during this time and within the first presidential administration were so important because they inspired later administrations and later presidents. Second term stumbles. George Washington's first term as president lasted from 1789 to 1792. At the time, the federal government was brand new. It was even a little shaky. However, Washington made the federal government seem more solid and valid. He enjoyed huge popularity. People trusted him. Unfortunately for the president, events in his second term somewhat clouded his unbelievable success. For one, his own cabinet split apart. Thomas Jefferson increasingly disagreed with the economic ideas proposed by Alexander Hamilton. Washington tended to agree with Hamilton. Even more disturbing to Washington was the birth of opposing political parties. These are now a key piece of modern democracy, of course. However, Washington and many others thought that the organized opposition to the government was treason. In other words, he saw them as traitors. So again, that reoccurring idea is coming up, which is these opposing political parties being developed set the tone for the rest of set the tone for the way our country progressed, right? We still have two major political parties today. Washington's legacy of a powerful democracy. So there were clouds at the end of Washington's public career. These clouds remind us that even this founding father did not always have it easy. He faced disagreements. Washington was very skilled and impressed many. Still, his qualities could not appeal to all people all of the time. Some of his personal qualities made him extremely effective. Interestingly, these are also qualities that might make him very unpopular today. Washington purposely kept a distance from the public. He was private and reserved. He was a bit of a loner. Washington was a curious mix of qualities. He was a dignified Republican. He disliked democratic ways of reaching a bit too far. This helped to give life, power, and respect to the young nation. The United States became the world's first modern democracy. This is in large part due to the course that President George Washington set in motion. All right, now that we've completed our article, let's think, what is the main idea? What were some of those key points that came up again and again as we were reading? I want you to pause the video here and look at these first two pages. Think to yourself, what were some key points that came up again and again? Pause the video, think about that. All right, let's go over some of these key points or key ideas. One first point that I noticed was Washington supported the call to hold a constitutional convention. He attended as a delegate, and there he was elected to oversee the writing of the US Constitution. What this main point shows is the importance of Washington even before he was elected president. Another main point that I found was the US Constitution provided a bare outline for how the federal government would be formed. However, how it would actually come together was not clear. The standard set by the first president would be huge. That quote really points to the fact that Washington's habits and the way that he ruled was really important for our new nation. Even more disturbing to Washington was the birth of political parties. These are now key pieces of modern democracy, of course. What this shows is that that time period and everything was going on would be so important and it would shape the course of our nation because we still have two political parties. And last but not least, the United States became the world's first modern democracy. This is in large part due to the course that President George Washington set in motion. Let's put all of these main points together to form a main idea. The first presidential administration of the United States and how it set the pattern for future presidents is the main idea of this text. Remember that when you're finding main idea, look for those key points as you're reading and then put them all together into a main idea statement. Thank you so much for reading with me, and I hope that you enjoyed this main idea review.